The afternoon sun slanted through the blinds, casting stripes across my floral duvet. "Mom, are you ready for your memory test?" Rebecca chirped, her phone already poised, the red recording light a tiny, malevolent eye. I knew what that meant. Another one of her little videos. Another opportunity for her to broadcast my stumbles and fumbles to the world, all for the sake of likes and views. "Rebecca," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "must you do this?" She waved a hand dismissively. "It's just a bit of fun, Mom. People love these videos. Besides," she added, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "it helps raise awareness. Awareness, right. Awareness of how to exploit your own mother's declining health for personal gain." I sighed, resigned. "Fine, Rebecca. Ask your questions." The camera zoomed in, focusing on my face, magnifying every wrinkle, every flicker of uncertainty. "Okay, Mom," she began, her voice artificially bright. "What day is it today?" I hesitated, the answer hovering just out of reach. "Tuesday," I ventured. Rebecca's lips curled into a barely perceptible smirk. "Nope, it's Thursday, Mom. Try again." "What month is it?" This time, I was determined to get it right. I concentrated, sifting through the fog in my mind. "June," I offered. "Close. It's July," Rebecca corrected, her tone dripping with exaggerated patience. "Getting worse, isn't she?" I heard her murmur to someone off-screen, presumably Julian, her fiancé. He'd been strangely quiet lately, lurking in the background like a shadow. The memory test continued, each question a tiny pinprick of humiliation. I struggled to remember my address, my birthday, the names of my grandchildren. With each wrong answer, Rebecca's smile widened, the red recording light blinking like a mocking beacon. Finally, the ordeal was over. "That's enough for today, Mom," Rebecca said, switching off the camera. "You did okay." Unspoken, but hung heavy in the air. "Rebecca," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why do you do this? Why do you film me like this?" She shrugged, already busy tapping away on her phone, presumably editing her latest masterpiece. "It's harmless fun, Mom. Lighten up. Besides, people find it relatable. They're sending donations to support you." Donations. The word struck me like a physical blow. She was making money off my illness, profiting from my pain. "Donations," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes," she said, glancing up, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "People are so touched by your story. They want to help. Isn't that nice?" Nice. It was disgusting. It was betrayal. My own daughter, parading my dementia for the world to see, turning my suffering into entertainment. "I need some rest," I mumbled, turning my face to the wall. Rebecca didn't protest. She simply swept out of the room, her phone clutched in her hand, no doubt eager to upload her latest conquest. I lay there, staring at the floral wallpaper, the pattern blurring through my tears. The humiliation was a heavy weight on my chest. How could she do this to me, her own mother? But then, a different emotion began to stir within me. Not anger, not exactly. Something colder, harder. Resolve. I might be losing my memories, but I wasn't helpless. I still had some cards to play. I remembered the conversation I'd overheard between Rebecca and Julian just a few weeks ago, whispering about investments, about a property deal, about needing a large sum of money quickly, something about leveraging something. The details were hazy, lost in the fog that increasingly enveloped my mind, but the memory of their hushed, anxious tones remained, and I knew, with a certainty that surprised even me, that I could use it. I closed my eyes, a faint smile playing on my lips. Rebecca wanted a show. I'd give her a show, one she wouldn't forget. The game, my dear daughter, has just begun. Rain lashed against the window pane, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. Several weeks had passed since that dreadful dinner, and Rebecca's words, "Mom, you're just not reliable anymore," echoed in the quiet of my home office. I sat surrounded by stacks of papers, bank statements, receipts, and investment portfolios, my head swimming in a sea of numbers. David had insisted I organize everything, just in case, he'd said, his brow furrowed with worry. I'd initially dismissed it, but a nagging feeling, a prickle of unease, had prompted me to finally tackle the task. And as I sifted through the documents, a chilling pattern began to emerge. Rebecca had access to my joint account. At first, the small withdrawals seemed insignificant, barely noticeable amidst the usual ebb and flow of expenses. Just a little something for groceries. "Mom," she'd chirp when I'd occasionally question a transaction. "Don't worry your pretty little head about it." But as I delved deeper, the amounts grew larger, more frequent, coinciding suspiciously with the dates she'd uploaded new videos to her channel. There it was, stark and undeniable, a payment from a social media monetization platform, deposited directly into my account, then swiftly transferred to hers. The amount was staggering. "Rebecca," I whispered, my voice catching in my throat, "what have you done?" The room felt suddenly cold, the rain outside intensifying, a relentless drumming against the glass. I clutched a bank statement in my trembling hand, the black ink blurring through a film of tears. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal, the calculated exploitation of my vulnerability. She was profiting from my decline, using my illness as a stepping stone to what? Internet fame, financial security. The thought made my stomach churn. How could she? I murmured, the question hanging heavy in the air. I thought of all the times she'd fussed over me, all the seemingly caring gestures, the gentle reminders, the offers to help manage my finances. It had all been a charade, a carefully constructed performance for the camera, and ultimately for her own gain. I closed my eyes, trying to gather my thoughts, to quell the rising panic. My mind, usually so sharp, felt foggy, sluggish. The doctor's words from my last appointment echoed in my ears. "Early onset Alzheimer's. Mrs. Morrison, I'm afraid there's no cure." He'd spoken gently, compassionately, but the diagnosis had hit me like a physical blow. Now, coupled with Rebecca's deceit, it felt like a double betrayal, a cruel twist of fate. "I won't let her win," I muttered, a flicker of resolve igniting within me. "I won't let her steal my dignity, my life." I spent the next few hours poring over the documents, meticulously piecing together the timeline of Rebecca's deception. The evidence was overwhelming. She'd started small, posting seemingly innocuous videos of our daily interactions, highlighting my occasional forgetfulness with exaggerated concern. Mom's having a bit of a senior moment. She'd captioned one video, a forced smile plastered on her face. As the views and comments increased, so did the frequency and intensity of the videos. She'd film me struggling to remember names, misplacing items, getting confused about dates and times. Each video was a carefully edited portrayal of my decline, designed to elicit sympathy, to garner clicks, to generate revenue. She's turned my life into a reality show. I realized, the bitterness rising in my throat, the thought of strangers watching these intimate moments, judging my every fumble, laughing at my confusion, filled me with a profound sense of violation. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to confront Rebecca and demand answers. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It would only give her what she wanted: more drama, more content for her insatiable online audience. I needed a plan, a way to expose her deception, to reclaim my narrative. But how? My mind, already clouded by illness, struggled to formulate a coherent strategy. I reached for my phone, intending to call David, but hesitated. He had enough on his plate. I didn't want to burden him with this. Not yet. I needed time to think, to strategize. The rain continued to fall, the rhythmic drumming a constant reminder of the storm raging both inside and outside. I looked around my office, at the familiar bookshelves, the framed photographs of happier times, the mementos of a life well lived. I wouldn't let Rebecca take this away from me. I wouldn't let her erase my past, diminish my present, or steal my future. A new resolve hardened within me, a quiet determination to fight back, to expose her betrayal, and to reclaim my life, one carefully calculated step at a time. I picked up a pen and started to write, a plan slowly taking shape in my mind, a plan that would turn the tables, a plan that would ensure Rebecca wouldn't have the last laugh. She'd underestimated me, mistaken my quiet demeanor for weakness. She was about to learn that a mother's love can be a powerful force, especially when fueled by righteous anger. The game, my dear Rebecca, has just begun. Rain lashed against the window of Dr. Ramirez's office, blurring the city lights into hazy halos. I'm afraid it's Alzheimer's, Mrs. Morrison, he said gently, his voice barely audible above the downpour. He continued, explaining the different stages, the potential progression, but his words seemed to fade into the background noise of the storm raging outside. I just stared at him, numb. I understand this is a lot to take in, he said, reaching for a box of tissues. Is there someone you'd like me to call? A family member? Perhaps. No, I replied, my voice catching in my throat. Not yet. The thought of telling Rebecca, of seeing that carefully curated mask of concern slip, filled me with a chilling dread. I thanked Dr. Ramirez and left, stepping back into the deluge. The rain felt icy against my skin, mirroring the coldness that had settled deep in my bones. I walked home in a daze, the diagnosis echoing in my mind. Alzheimer's. The word felt like a brand, marking me as different, as less. I thought of Rebecca, of her constant filming, her obsession with documenting every little slip, every forgotten word. Was she truly concerned, or was it all just content for her channel? The sickening realization washed over me. She was profiting from my decline. The thought burned like acid, a betrayal far deeper than any forgotten birthday or careless word. The following days were a blur of appointments and tests, each one confirming Dr. Ramirez's initial diagnosis. David, my son, was a rock, attending every appointment, holding my hand as the doctors explained inevitable decline. "We'll get through this, Mom," he'd say, his voice filled with a love and support that Rebecca seemed incapable of offering. "We're a team," Rebecca called occasionally, her voice bright and chirpy, asking how I was feeling, if I needed anything. "I'm fine, dear," I'd reply, my voice carefully neutral, just a bit tired. I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth, to confront her with the knowledge of her exploitation. Not yet. I needed time to think, to plan. One evening, David came over for dinner. "How are you holding up, Mom?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "It's a lot." "I'm managing," I replied, forcing a smile. "It's just Rebecca." "What about her?" David's brow furrowed. He'd always been protective of me, sensitive to any slight, real or perceived. "Her videos," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She's using my illness for views." David's face hardened. "What are you talking about?" I pulled up Rebecca's channel on my tablet, showing him the videos, the carefully crafted titles designed to attract clicks. "My mom forgets my name. Living with Alzheimer's. A daughter's story. The heartbreaking reality of dementia." Each video featured snippets of my forgetfulness, my confusion, edited together with mournful music and Rebecca's tearful pronouncements of love and concern. David watched in silence, his face growing grimmer with each passing video. "This is disgusting," he said finally, his voice thick with anger. "She's exploiting you, Mom. This is wrong." "I know," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "I don't know what to do." David took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "We'll figure something out, Mom. We always do." His words sparked a flicker of hope within me. Maybe, just maybe, we could turn this around. Maybe I could find a way to reclaim my narrative, to expose Rebecca's deception. The next few days were spent poring over Rebecca's videos, analyzing her comments section, looking for patterns, for weaknesses. I noticed a recurring theme in the comments: requests for updates on Rebecca's wedding plans, questions about Julian, her fiancé. Rebecca and Julian were planning a lavish destination wedding, funded, in large part, by the revenue generated from her exploitative videos. That's where I would strike. One evening, while Rebecca was out with Julian, I called David. "I have a plan," I told him, my voice steady with a newfound resolve. "It's time to teach Rebecca a lesson." David listened intently as I outlined my strategy, a slow smile spreading across his face. "That's brilliant, Mom," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "Absolutely brilliant." The plan was simple, yet elegant. It would require patience, careful execution, and a touch of theatrics. But I was ready. The diagnosis had knocked me down, but it hadn't broken me. I was still F.A. Morrison, and I wasn't going to let my daughter profit from my pain. I would take back control of my story, and Rebecca would learn that some things, like family and loyalty, are more valuable than any amount of online fame. The rain had stopped, and the first rays of dawn were beginning to paint the sky with a soft, hopeful light. A new day was dawning. and with it, a new sense of purpose. I had a daughter to teach a lesson. Rain lashed against the kitchen window, mirroring the storm inside me. Rebecca, perched on a stool at the breakfast bar, scrolled through her phone, oblivious. I watched her, a knot tightening in my stomach. "Rebecca," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk about those videos." She glanced up, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "Mom, not this again. I told you. It's nothing to worry about." "Nothing to worry about," I repeated, incredulous. "You're filming me during my episodes and posting them online for the world to see." Rebecca sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. "It's called raising awareness, Mom. People need to see the reality of Alzheimer's. Reality," my voice rose, "or exploitation. You're using my illness for clicks and likes, Rebecca." "How could you?" She shrugged, her gaze fixed on her perfectly manicured nails. "Don't be so dramatic. It's helping people, and it's helping me. Julian and I are saving up for a down payment on a house. This extra income is making a huge difference." Julian. Of course. Everything always came back to Julian. Ever since they met, Rebecca's life had revolved around him. His needs, his ambitions, my needs, it seemed, had become secondary, then tertiary, and now invisible. "So, my suffering is funding your future?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca finally looked at me, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher in her eyes. "Mom, you're not suffering. You're forgetful sometimes. It's not the end of the world. Besides," she added, softening her tone slightly, "once we have the house, you can come and live with us. We'll take care of you." The offer hung in the air, heavy and hollow. Live with them, be another subject for Rebecca's videos, another burden for Julian to resent. "That's very generous of you, Rebecca," I managed, forcing a tight smile. "But I think I'll manage on my own for now." She didn't push it, simply nodding and returning to her phone. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words, with the chasm that had opened between us. I watched the rain continue to batter the window, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The doctor's words from earlier echoed in my mind, confirming my worst fears. Early onset Alzheimer's. Rebecca clearly saw me as a liability, a source of embarrassment, and now a stepping stone to her perfect life with Julian. But what Rebecca didn't know was that I still had my wits about me, more than she realized. And I also had something else she desperately coveted: my assets. Years of careful saving and investing had left me with a comfortable nest egg, a fact I'd kept close to my chest, even from my children. Rebecca, always obsessed with appearances and material possessions, assumed I was living on a modest pension. She had no idea about the house, the savings accounts, the insurance policies. She thought I was fading, becoming irrelevant. She thought she could control me, use me. "Rebecca," I said, breaking the silence, "I need to go to the bank tomorrow. Can you drive me?" She looked up, surprised. "The bank? What for?" I smiled faintly. "Just some financial matters. It's important." A flicker of curiosity crossed her face. "Sure, Mom. What time?" "Mid-morning would be good," I replied, watching her carefully. She nodded, her mind already seemingly elsewhere. calculating perhaps how much longer she could milk my condition for online sympathy. I turned back to the window, the rain finally beginning to subside. The storm outside had passed, but the storm within me was just beginning to gather force. I had a plan forming, a way to take back control, to protect myself, and to teach Rebecca a valuable lesson. She wanted my assets. She wanted to control my life. She would learn that some things are more valuable than likes and followers, and that sometimes the quietest storms are the most destructive. Tomorrow's trip to the bank would be the first step. She thought she was in control. She had no idea. The phone felt cold against my ear, a stark contrast to the simmering anger in my chest. "David, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's about Rebecca." He responded instantly, his voice full of concern. "What is it, Mom? Is everything all right?" "No, David, everything is not all right," I said, the words catching in my throat. "Your sister, she's been filming me, filming my lapses, my forgetfulness." There was a stunned silence on the other end, then a sharp intake of breaths. "Filming you? What do you mean, Mom?" he asked, his voice rising in disbelief. I explained everything to him, forcing myself to remain calm as I recounted the subtle clues I'd pieced together. The phone constantly positioned just so, the seemingly innocent questions that always seemed to precede one of my moments. The strange, knowing looks exchanged between Rebecca and Julian. "She calls them episodes," I told him, the word feeling bitter on my tongue. "She's posting them online, David, on some social media platform, for views, for money." The silence that followed was heavier this time, filled with a dawning horror I knew he must be feeling. "Mom, are you serious?" he finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I wish I wasn't, David," I replied, weariness seeping into my voice. "I confronted Julian about it. He practically admitted it." I recounted the conversation I'd had with Julian, his condescending tone, his thinly veiled justifications about raising awareness and building a community. He said it was Rebecca's idea. I finished, my voice thick with disgust. "He said she's the creative one. That's disgusting," David finally said, his voice shaking with anger. "How could she? How could they do this to you?" His words were a balm to my wounded spirit, a validation of the hurt and betrayal I was feeling. "I don't know, David," I said, my voice cracking. "I just don't know." I paused, taking a deep breath to compose myself. I showed them the doctor's report. "David," I said, my voice flat, "the one confirming the Alzheimer's." Another stunned silence. "You told them?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "Yes," I replied. "I wanted them to understand." Tossed up. But it didn't matter. Julian just shrugged. He said something about it being even more compelling content now. Can you believe that? David was silent for a moment, absorbing the information. "Mom, I don't know what to say," he finally said, his voice choked with emotion. "This is beyond belief." "I know," I said softly. "I know." I took another deep breath, steeling myself for what I had to say next. "David, I need your help." There was a determined edge to his voice now. "Anything, Mom. What do you need?" "I need you to help me gather some information," I said, my voice low and steady. I need to know everything about Rebecca's finances, her bank accounts, her investments, everything. What are you planning, Mom? He asked, a note of apprehension in his voice. I hesitated for a moment, unsure how to explain the plan forming in my mind. I'm not going to let them get away with this, David, I said, my voice hardening with resolve. They think I'm fading, that I'm losing my grip. But I'm not. I'm still here, and I'm going to make them pay. But, Mom, David began, his voice cautious, what can you do? They're already doing it. They're already making money. Oh, they're making money all right, I replied, a flicker of something cold and sharp entering my voice. And that's exactly what I'm going to use against them. I could hear the confusion in David's voice. I don't understand, Mom. What do you mean? Rebecca is so focused on the money, David. I explained, my voice gaining strength with every word. She's blinded by it. She hasn't even considered the legal implications of what she's doing. She's using my image, my story, without my consent. And that, my dear David, is illegal. There was a long pause. Then David's voice filled with a dawning understanding. You're going to sue her? Not exactly, I said, a small smile playing on my lips. I'm going to do something much more effective. I could almost feel David's curiosity radiating through the phone. What? What are you going to do? He asked, his voice eager now. I'm not going to tell you everything just yet, David, I said, my voice laced with a touch of mystery. But let's just say Rebecca's little online empire is about to crumble. Mom, this sounds risky, David said, a note of worry creeping back into his voice. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. David, I replied, my voice firm and unwavering. Just trust me and gather that information for me. We have work to do. Okay, Mom, David said, his voice resolute now. I trust you. I'll start digging right away. We said our goodbyes, and I hung up the phone, a sense of purpose filling me. Rebecca and Julian thought they could exploit me, use my illness for their own gain. They thought I was helpless, a fading memory. They were wrong. I may be losing some things, but I haven't lost my cunning, and I'm about to show them just how resourceful a woman with nothing left to lose can be. This was just the beginning. The game was on. 2 weeks crawled by, each day a slow drip of resentment. Rebecca breezed into the kitchen, her usual chirpiness grating on my nerves. Mom, I have something for you to sign, she announced, placing a neatly folded document on the table. It's just to make things official. Official. Like I was some kind of business deal, not her mother. What is it, Rebecca? I asked, my voice carefully neutral. It's a contract, Mom, she explained, a little too brightly. For the video project. The video project. My stomach churned. A contract? I echoed, picking it up with trembling hands. The paper felt heavy, like a physical manifestation of the betrayal. It outlined the terms of our agreement, how Rebecca would continue to document my life, my decline, for her social media channel. It's just to protect both of us, she said, her eyes flitting around the room, avoiding mine. Julian helped me draft it. I scanned the pages, the legalese blurring into meaningless jargon. Protect us from what, Rebecca? I finally asked. my voice quieter than I intended. She shifted her weight, a nervous habit I'd noticed growing more pronounced lately. Well, eunologal stuff, making sure everything is clear about the videos, the revenue sharing. Revenue sharing. She had the audacity to talk about money, about profiting from my illness. Revenue sharing. I repeated, my voice rising slightly. You're making money from this, Rebecca. She rushed to reassure me. It's just a little bit, Mom. It helps with the bills, you know, and it allows me to spend more time with you, spend more time with me, or spend more time filming me. The thought curdled in my mind. I forced a smile. Of course, dear. It's thoughtful of you to worry about the bills. I set the contract down, my mind racing. I had to be careful. I couldn't let her see how much this hurt, how angry I was. I needed to play along, to bide my time. I'll need some time to look over this, Rebecca, I said, my voice steady. It's a lot to take in. She beamed, relief washing over her face. Of course, Mom. Take all the time you need. Julian said it's important you understand everything. Julian, always Julian. He was behind this. I was sure of it. He was the one whispering in her ear, feeding her greed. The days that followed were a blur of feigned compliance. I pretended to study the contract, asking Rebecca seemingly innocent questions about the clauses, the percentages, the legal jargon. She answered patiently, eager to have everything finalized. Each conversation was another piece of the puzzle, another confirmation of her deceit. I learned how much she was making, how many followers she had, how her channel had grown exponentially since she started documenting my journey. It sickened me, but it also fueled my resolve. I would not let them get away with this. One evening, while Rebecca was out with Julian, I went into her study. I knew she kept her laptop there, the one she used to edit her videos. My hands trembled as I typed in her password, a combination of her birthday and Julian's initials. It was sickeningly easy. The desktop opened, revealing folders filled with video files, spreadsheets, and documents. I found what I was looking for, a folder labeled Mom's Channel. I clicked it open, my heart pounding in my chest. Inside were dozens of videos, each one meticulously labeled with dates and descriptions. I clicked on one at random. It was a video of me struggling to remember Rebecca's name. My own face stared back at me, confused and vulnerable. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them back. This was not the time for tears. This was the time for action. I spent hours that night combing through her files, piecing together the extent of her deception. I found spreadsheets tracking her revenue, emails with sponsors, and even a draft of a book proposal titled My Mother's Journey, A Daughter's Guide to Coping with Alzheimer's. The audacity of it all was breathtaking. But buried within those files, I also found something else, something unexpected, something that would change everything. It was a folder labeled Investments. Curiosity overriding caution, I clicked it open. Inside were documents related to Rebecca and Julian's joint finances. And that's where I found it. A series of transactions, large sums of money being transferred into an offshore account, an account in Julian's name. My mind raced. This was bigger than I thought, much bigger. This wasn't just about the videos, about exploiting my illness. This was about something else entirely, something illegal, and I finally had the leverage I needed. A slow smile spread across my face. Rebecca and Julian thought they were playing a game. They had no idea what they were up against. They thought they were in control, but they were wrong. The game was just about to begin, and I was holding all the cards. The glow of the laptop screen illuminated my face, the cursor blinking expectantly in the new document. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. It was time. Rebecca's callous words, "You're just a burden now, Mom," echoed in my mind. It fueled my resolve. I took a deep breath and began to type, each keystroke a small victory against the betrayal that had consumed my life these past months. "To whom it may concern," I wrote, then paused, considering my next words carefully. This needed to be precise, clear, and undeniable. I continued, "My name is F.A. Morrison, and I am writing to expose the truth about my daughter, Rebecca, and her fiancé, Julian." I detailed the slow creep of my Alzheimer's, the subtle slips of memory that Rebecca, at first, seemed so concerned about. "Mom, are you sure you're okay?" she'd ask, her voice dripping with false solicitude. "You forgot where you put your keys again." She'd hover, always hovering, phone in hand. It hadn't taken long for those concerned inquiries to morph into something else. The phone was always there, recording, capturing my most vulnerable moments. "Look at Mom," she'd whisper to Julian. Just out of earshot, I thought. But the microphone picked up everything. "She's trying to make toast with a banana again." He'd chuckle. The sound still grated on my nerves. I typed, recounting how those snippets of my life, edited and packaged with saccharine music and captions about raising awareness, began appearing on Rebecca's burgeoning social media channel. Dealing with a loved one's Alzheimer's is a journey, she'd declare to her followers, her voice thick with manufactured empathy. "Join me as I navigate this challenging time." What she failed to mention was the revenue those videos generated, the sponsorships, the merchandise. My decline was her ascent, my pain, her profit. "Rebecca has used my illness for personal gain." I typed, the words stark on the white screen. "She has exploited my vulnerability to build her online presence and enrich herself financially." I included screenshots of her channel, highlighting the videos featuring me, the viewer counts, the comments praising her strength and dedication. Then I attached bank statements, my bank statements showing regular transfers of substantial amounts of money from my accounts to Rebecca's. Money she claimed was for my care, for making my life easier. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the send button. This was it. There was no turning back. My son, David, had advised caution. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" he'd asked, his voice laced with concern. "It's going to be messy." He was right. It would be messy, but the alternative, allowing Rebecca to continue profiting from my suffering, was unthinkable. I clicked send. The email whooshed into the digital ether, a silent missile aimed at the heart of Rebecca's carefully constructed facade. Then I uploaded the same information, the letter, the screenshots, the bank statements, to a newly created, anonymous account on the same platform Rebecca used. I titled the post simply, "The Truth About Rebecca and Julian." I sat back, watching as the view count climbed. The comments started slowly, then grew into a torrent. Disbelief, anger, disgust. People felt betrayed. They felt used. They had empathized with Rebecca's story, only to discover it was a carefully crafted lie. Sponsors began pulling out, their logos disappearing from her channel. Influencers who had collaborated with her issued public apologies, distancing themselves from the scandal. Rebecca's carefully curated world was crumbling, and I, the woman she had dismissed as a burden, had brought it all crashing down. I knew this wouldn't erase the hurt, the betrayal, but it was a start. It was a reclamation. I had taken back control. My phone buzzed. It was David. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "You wouldn't believe what's happening online." I closed my laptop, a small smile playing on my lips. I knew exactly what was happening, and it was just the beginning. I had another, bigger, surprise planned for Rebecca and Julian, something tied to the very foundation of their carefully curated future together, something involving the house they thought they were inheriting. The late afternoon sun slanted through the living room window, casting long shadows across the dust motes dancing in the air. I sat in my favorite armchair, the worn velvet soft against my cheek, a quiet stillness settling over me. It was over. The whirlwind of anger, hurt, and meticulous planning had finally subsided. Rebecca's outburst still echoed in my ears. "How could you do this to me, Mom? My entire life ruined," she'd stormed out, Julian trailing behind her, muttering apologies he clearly didn't mean. "Rebecca, wait," he called. "We need to talk about this." But she just kept walking, her shoulders stiff with rage. David, bless his heart, sat on the ottoman, holding my hand. "Are you all right, Mom?" he asked, his voice thick with concern. "Just tired, dear," I replied, squeezing his hand gently. "But it's a good tired." He smiled, relief washing over his features. "I was so worried about you," he admitted. "This whole thing, it's been so stressful." "It had to be done," I said, my gaze drifting to the laptop still open on the coffee table. The live stream had ended, but the comments were still pouring in. Thousands of them. Messages of support, outrage at Rebecca's behavior, and even a few sharing similar stories of familial betrayal. I hadn't anticipated such a strong reaction. "People understand, David," I murmured, a small smile playing on my lips. "They do, Mom," he agreed. "They see you for who you are, a strong, incredible woman who wouldn't let anyone take advantage of her." He paused, then added softly, "Especially not her own daughter." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting his words sink in. He was right. I had reclaimed my narrative. I had taken back control. "I transferred the remaining funds this morning," I said, turning back to David. He looked up, surprised. "The ones Rebecca thought she was siphoning off," I nodded. "They're safe now, in an account she can't touch." He raised an eyebrow. "And where is that, exactly?" "It's a trust," I explained. "For your children, for their education, their future." David's eyes widened. "Mom," he began, his voice choked with emotion, "you didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," I said simply. "It's my money, after all, and I want it to go to those who truly deserve it." I looked at him, a warmth spreading through me. "You and your family have been my rock, David." You've stood by me, believed in me, even when my own daughter didn't." He leaned over and hugged me tightly. "We love you, Mom," he whispered. Always. When he pulled away, his eyes were shining with tears. "So," he said, clearing his throat, "what are you going to do with the house?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken possibilities. I smiled, a mischievous glint in my eye. "Well," I began, a plan already forming in my mind. "I've been thinking about a little trip. Somewhere warm, somewhere with a beach." I trailed off, letting the image bloom between us. Palm trees swaying in the breeze, turquoise waters lapping at the shore, the sun warm on my skin. A place far away from the drama, the betrayal, the hurt. A place where I could finally relax and enjoy the life I had fought so hard to protect. "That sounds wonderful, Mom," David said, his voice full of genuine excitement. "You deserve it." "And perhaps," I added, my smile widening, "I'll send you a postcard from a beachfront villa with a brand new car parked out front." David chuckled. "I can't wait to see it," he said, shaking his head in amusement. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the tension of the past weeks finally easing. I watched the dust motes dance in the sunlight, a sense of peace settling over me like a warm blanket. It was over. Rebecca had underestimated me. She thought she could use my illness, my vulnerability, for her own gain. But she had forgotten one crucial thing. I was still F.A. Morrison, and I always had a plan. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I knew, with a certainty that ran deep in my bones, that this was just the beginning of my next chapter. A chapter filled with sunshine, freedom, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had won. And perhaps, just perhaps, a little bit of well-deserved luxury. The crisp morning air felt good against my face as I sat on the park bench, David beside me. He squeezed my hand gently. "You did it, Mom," he said, his voice full of pride. "You really did it." I smiled, a genuine smile, the first in weeks. It felt strange, unfamiliar almost, like a muscle I hadn't used in a long time. It wasn't easy, I admitted, watching a group of children chase pigeons across the paved path. But it was necessary. David nodded, his gaze following mine. "She had it coming," he said, a hard edge to his voice. "Exploiting you like that, Dot, it was disgusting." I sighed. I still can't believe she would do that to me, her own mother. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. Discovering Rebecca's betrayal, the cold, calculating way she documented my struggles with early-onset Alzheimer's for her social media channel, had shattered me. "Remember when she used to read to me?" I asked David, my voice catching. "When I first started having trouble remembering things." He nodded. "She'd sit right here, on this very bench, and read for hours, and film it," David added, a bitter twist to his lips. "For content," she called it. The memory stung. She'd feign such concern, such tenderness, all the while capturing my vulnerability for views and likes. Julian, ever the supportive fiancé, would hover nearby, offering encouraging smiles and adjusting the camera angle. Such a loving couple. They'd portray themselves as. The hypocrisy made my stomach churn. Then came the diagnosis. The doctor's words echoed in my ears. Early onset Alzheimer's. My world tilted. My first thought wasn't fear. but a chilling certainty that Rebecca would see this not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. And I was right. Her posts became more frequent, more dramatic. My memory lapses, my confusion, my struggles all meticulously documented and served up to her growing audience for their entertainment. Remember that touching video she posted about me forgetting her birthday? I asked David. He snorted. How could I forget? It got her over 1 million views. I closed my eyes, the shame and hurt washing over me again. She even filmed me searching for my keys, ones she'd hidden, just to get the shot. David wrapped an arm around me. I know, Mom. I know. The turning point came when I overheard Rebecca and Julian discussing their plans. They were going to sell my house, my home of 50 years, and use the money to invest in their social media empire. That's when the fog in my mind, the confusion that had been my constant companion for months, began to lift. A steely resolve took its place. I wouldn't let them. I couldn't. This wasn't just about the house. It was about my dignity, my life. It's funny. I said to David, a small smile playing on my lips. They thought they were so clever, manipulating me, using my illness for their own gain. What they didn't know, I continued, my voice gaining strength, was that I was playing the long game. I opened my eyes, the sunlight glinting off something I held in my hand. A small, sleek flash drive. This, I said, holding it up, contains everything. Every conversation, every whispered plan, every cruel joke they made at my expense. I had David install hidden cameras and microphones throughout the house weeks ago. They documented everything. David grinned. They never suspected a thing. They underestimated me, I said, my voice firm. They thought I was a confused old woman, lost in the fog of Alzheimer's. They didn't realize I was still sharp enough to outsmart them. I'd sent the flash drive to a local news station, along with a detailed account of Rebecca's exploitation. I'd also contacted a lawyer specializing in elder abuse. The story broke this morning. Rebecca's carefully constructed image of the loving, devoted daughter crumbled within hours. Her followers, once sympathetic, now turned on her with a vengeance. The comment sections on her videos overflowed with accusations of betrayal and exploitation. Sponsors dropped her. Her channel was demonetized. Julian, ever the pragmatist, reportedly packed his bags and left. He always was a fair-weather friend, I murmured. David squeezed my hand again. It's over, Mom. You're safe now. I looked at him, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. The fight had taken its toll, but I'd won. I'd protected myself, my home, my dignity. I kept all the documentation. I told David, the legal documents, the medical records, everything pertaining to the house. He looked at me, a question in his eyes. I'm putting it all in your name, David, I said. The house, the savings, everything. He looked stunned. Mom, he started. But I cut him off. It's yours, I said firmly. You've always been there for me. You deserve it. I paused, looking out at the park, the children still chasing pigeons. There's one more thing, I said, a mischievous glint in my eye. David raised an eyebrow. I also transferred a substantial sum of money into a new account. I continued, an account that Rebecca will never be able to access. David's jaw dropped. What are you going to do with it? He asked. his voice barely a whisper. I smiled, a real smile this time, full of quiet satisfaction. I haven't decided yet, I said, but I have a few ideas.